How sweep it is. Who are these guys? The Mets went down to the nation's capital and swept the Nationals. They're now 8 games under 500. Still not great, but it looks a lot better than 11, 12, 13 games under 500. And now the Metropolitans will ship across the pond to London for tea and crumpets and 2 games of baseball. That was a terrible accent against the first place Phillies. Let's talk about it, as we'll have my reunion show today. Once a month, we like to do it with my old co-host of Amazing But True, former Mets pitcher and Picks 11 host, Nelson Figueroa. All that and a whole lot more. It's coming up next on the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Mets Magic with Jake Brown.
And it's in there, strike 3 called. The Mets win the pennant. The New York Mets have won the National League pennant. Put it in the books. The New York Mets, for the first time in 15 years, are champions of the National League.
The sickest New York Mets podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back to the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. I'm your host, Jake Brown. At Jake Brown Radio is where you find me on X, on Instagram, and on YouTube, youtube.com/@JakeBrownRadio. You can find the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic, also on YouTube. Smash that thumbs up button below. We appreciate the support. Comment below how you're feeling about the Mets right now as they head to London this weekend for 2 games. You can follow us at SickPodMets on X, as we're around 100 followers. Finally, it took a while. Maybe I'll give away a cookie or something as we hit 100 followers on there. Thank you for your support so far. Thanks to all of our guests so far. And the Mets were in better spirits this week than last week and every week prior, because the Mets have swept the series. I'm so used to them getting swept and them getting their ass beat and me ranting about it. Finally, on Wednesday, we saw almost perfect baseball, from the bats batching, the pitchers pitching, and the fielders fielding. It was baseball 101. And for once, there was no headache. It was a sweat-free victory. Seems like every other win prior to that, 1-run wins, 2-run wins. Even when they won Tuesday 6-3, Bader almost crashed into Marte, and they had some words at the end of the game. Even that was a sweat. Monday was a sweat. So it's been a lot of sweat, which is Jake Brown on a hot summer day. And it's been the New York Mets swan song this season has been sweat, sweat, sweat. Get your sweat towels out, because this win will get sweaty. That's been the Mets. Well, today on the show, I'm happy to welcome in my old co-host. I like to do it at least once a month or every 6 weeks. Bring him back, because I know he misses me dearly, as he has just turned 50 years old. This old son of a bitch. He is just – the gray's coming more and more every day, but we still love him anyway. Nelson Figueroa. You can catch him on Picks 11, New York Sports Nation Nightly with Mark Malusa, 7 to 7:30 p.m. on Channel 11 or whatever, 511 if it's on HD in my house on Verizon Files. If you don't want to watch – I don't even know if the standard definition of a channel exists in this era. So watch it in HD because he looks older in standard definition. You don't want that. You can follow him on Twitter now with he's got the blue check back. I'm sure you got that expensed for that account. You know, you had to pay for the account, because if you have one tweet blow up like my Knicks are 2 wins away from the Celtics, 1.3 million views, it essentially pays for the year. And as much as it hurts to pay Elon Musk, you know, if I'm going to make a little money, maybe buy a couple of chicken parms, might as well pay for it. At FiggyNY on Twitter. Happy belated birthday, and welcome back to Mets Magic.
Thank you. Great to be back. So once a month, it's like we're a married couple. I love it.
Yeah, once a month. That's like on a good year, on a good month. Still more action than I've been having of late, but that's fine. It's the summer of Jake here. It's the summer of the Mets in London. Look at this. Mr. Met phone booth bobblehead. He was calling not Miss Met, because I think he's been cheating on Miss Met, because now they have a different Twitter account now. So look at this. I wonder who he's calling.
We got to get to the bottom of that too as well. Why all the controversy over the Miss Met account?
I'm wondering if it's budget cuts. We know budget cuts very well in our
Budget cuts from what? It's the internet. It's free. What was the issue?
Social media manager. Maybe they wanted one instead of two. We couldn't have someone tweet from Miss Met. We didn't want to.
You couldn't make 2 tweets a day? Come on. They haven't made.
Now they got to pay for the
February.
subscription. Maybe they didn't want to pay the $85 for the year for Miss Met's verified subscription. And they said, screw it. We're going to make it one account. I mean, Mr. Met was always an eligible bachelor. Miss Met came out of nowhere and was like, he's married now. Wow. He's been single
she tried
for
to cuff,
so long.
She tried to cuff him?
It's almost like me. I've been single for so long. At some point here, I got to get wifed up. I will say I've had a few dates with someone that is very intriguing. So we'll see where that goes down the road here. Maybe I'll update. I don't like to say things too early, but
no, don't jinx it.
Yeah, but so far so good. But anyways, welcome back to Mets Magic. It's a reunion of sorts. Look at this, we're back.
Oh my heavens! Yeah, the good old
in the closet. I almost ripped your head off by accident.
That happens. That happens.
I'm sure sometimes you'd rather talk to this version of me where I shut up and I'm silent.
Nah.
But yeah, thanks. Send in the clowns. It's perfect. That's where we're in the ballpark. 2020. Mets Magic was Mets Tragic, but I guess for this week we're back to Mets Magic. Each week we rotate the show name, but this week it's Mets Magic because what we saw Wednesday was magical. There were diving catches. There was Luis Torrens. To you this goofy ass 2024 Mets bingo card, which has a Luis Torrens, who you never heard of, 2 home run game, Yankee minor leaguer last year, has 20 career homers, comes here, and he hits 2 in a day. And you got me and everyone tweeting, is Luis Torrens our new backup when Francisco Alvarez comes back next week? And do you kick Tomas Nido to the curb? I know it's a short sample size, but Torrens has showed you a lot more at the plate, and he's also thrown guys out. I'm not really going to start there, but maybe I should. Luis Torrens or Nido, go.
Starting with the backstop. Listen, Tomas Nido is the defensive catcher that they like. I get it. It wasn't just Tomas Nido. Most of the runners were going on Narvaez. Listen, kudos to the front office for having the balls to make moves. We've, for a long time, saw this team afraid to make moves, afraid to shake up the roster, afraid to sit players who aren't performing well. We saw that for a long, long time, and this has been different, right? Over the past week or so, 2 weeks, you're seeing a different version of the hierarchy. Finally, there's a manager in charge. It would be like, if there was no manager at Walmart and just, everybody thought they were in charge. It didn't work out well for the Mets throughout the past 4 years of Uncle Steve's regime. So now you have somebody with a vision and who says, hey, listen, I think this is the best move at this time for this team. And he's not afraid to make cuts. He's not afraid to change the lineup, not afraid to try different things. I mean, when you had a guy who's batting under 200, would you say, hey, put him at the top of the lineup? Let's get him more at bats? No. And it's worked out really well for a guy like Francisco Lindor. So I think if you look at it was a nice game for Torrens. He wanted to make the flight at least to London, and he did that. And this way you give Alvarez a few more days to rest and relax after celebrating his combined no-hitter at the Brooklyn Cyclones.
How about that? First 9-inning no-hitter of Cyclones history, and the catcher is Francisco Alvarez. And I believe he caught Brandon Sproat's incredible game a couple nights before, I believe, with the 10 strikeouts career performance. Clearly there's something to Alvarez being a piece, not just here, but in the minors. And I think the Mets are drooling, despite Torrens' great play, which is fun. They're drooling to get Alvarez back next week.
Oh, without a doubt. That was a huge loss. He had come into his own. His swagger was undeniable. He knew his place on the team. He was no longer one of the catchers. He was the catcher. And Narvaez was a $10 million backup. You knew that. So it was his job. It was, he was trying to, really have a career year after coming off of 24 home runs last year, where they know he has the power. It was always the catching side of it. It was the day-to-day. And I think that was one of the things that the opponents are doing with the Mets. They're going to run on them, and they're going to continue to run on them until they prove otherwise. So they're starting to throw out a few more runners. It's not, maybe the pitchers are taking more notice to it because you have to. It becomes an embarrassment. We saw that for years with the 5 aces and Noah Syndergaard and Matz and Harvey. They just didn't care about base runners. We'll just strike everybody out kind of theory. So I think Torrens had a nice game, but you'll see Tomas Nido there. I'm not sure if Torrens has.
Do you think they're gonna send Torrens packing over Nido? Because a lot of the Mets fans seem to think we know what Nido is. Let's give Torrens a try and maybe DFA Nido.
Well, again, like, are you going to continue to just cut people for, monetarily? Nito's making a good amount of money to go and get just cut. You need some depth as well. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Torrens could take a look at what happened to Alvarez. Do you think that would be the way he would hurt his thumb, rounding first base and leaning a little bit too far to the left? So I think you never want to do anything that I don't know if Torrens has options. If he does have an option, or if he can be sent to the minor leagues, he'll get sent to the minor leagues, and you just store him. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Did you notice? I'm curious your take, Figgy, as a pitcher, the difference between certain catchers, because clearly Alvarez has an impact, and the pitchers in Brooklyn talked about how he gave them confidence in their pitches, and how he calls a great game. There's certain pitchers, great ones, that have their personal catcher. They like their guy. Now, did you have a guy that you liked more? And did you notice a major difference between certain catchers? You were like, I'd much rather have this guy, or I pitched much better when, Mike Piazza over Tomas Nido, whatever, whoever the catcher may be. Did you notice a significant difference at times?
Well, one of the things is, for a guy like me, is when I was throwing my bullpens and I'm working on my craft, it was the backup catcher that was catching me. It wasn't the starting catcher was catching me. So the backup catcher kind of got to know my rapport. He got to know what I like to throw. We talked about it. Like, we would do situations. Hey, it's a 1-1 count, left-handed hitter. What pitches can I throw in a 1-1 count to turn the tide to a 1-2 count? And then I can go with a put-away pitch. I had the confidence knowing that he and I would be on the same page. Then I would get the starting catcher who really cared about driving and runs and hitting home runs, and it was a different vibe. It was a different feel. Like, literally, I remember this. My first time in Double-A, Vance Wilson had just come from big league camp, and literally,
I loved Vance Wilson. I met him.
I know you did.
I told you the story. I met Armando Benitez in a Mercedes Benz. He stayed in the car, got his autograph. Behind him, pulls up in like a 1992 Honda Civic. Vance Wilson comes out of his car. He's like, wow, you guys know who I am, and signed for everyone. So it was Mercedes Benitez, Honda Civic, Vance Wilson.
Vance Wilson. So Vance Wilson is the catcher, and legitimately he got there probably the night before. It's opening day against the Norwich Navigators, and I'm throwing in the bullpen with the backup catcher. And then Vance Wilson comes out, and he says, all right, kid, what do we got? Fastball, slider, changeup? And I go, one of the three. I'm like, I'm a fastball, curveball, split finger guy, and I'll sprinkle in a changeup, and I'm still working on a slider. So now he has never seen my split finger. It was kind of like the ghost forkball, where it would knuckle and kind of drop to the dirt. First time he gets a chance to look at it, he doesn't like it because he can't judge what it's going to do. It's like a hard knuckleball. So he didn't want to call it. So anytime there was runners on base, because he wanted to throw people out, it was fastball away, fastball away, fastball away. So that always undermined what kind of a pitcher I could be. So that makes it difficult, right? You got to make sure that no matter who the catcher is, and they do a better job with that now because they have the scouting reports, they have a breakdown of what guys hit and can't hit. So they base it off of that more so than anything. Before, it was based off what your repertoire were, what your strengths were. And so if I'm going into a game and my strengths are my fastball, curveball, and my split, and this guy calls a lot of sliders early on in the count, and I'm throwing not very good sliders, yeah, it's my fault for not executing, but at the same time, it's my fifth best pitch. And so it's not going to be something that I'm going to have a lot of success with. So that's one of the things that I think the game has gotten a lot better with. You get the scouting reports and you know exactly what you want to do. For a guy like Alvarez down there in the minors, of course they have confidence in Alvarez. This is a major league guy. This isn't a guy who's, just signed out of high school or college. They have utmost confidence. It's even, I'll take it a step further. When I had the WBC game of my life, and I've got Yadier Molina catching me, do you think for a millisecond I doubted any kind of signal he put down or location he put down? Absolutely not. In fact, I think in the fourth inning of that game against Team USA, I told him in the dugout, I said, dude, I'm going to have to shake you off. It's like I'm not even doing anything out there. And he goes,
Continue. Sorry.
No, so he goes, I dare you. I dare you shake me off. And I was like, all right, maybe I won't do that. So
I'm
I was
curious,
actually
you
shaking him
noticed
off.
that major, like when Yachty versus Vance Wilson catches you,
Oh God,
it's
yes.
two different guys calling a game. So that's why it's interesting, Alvarez versus Torrens or Alvarez versus Nito. Like you said, you were more accustomed to the backup, but when you have a Hall of Famer catching you,
Correct.
you're essentially saying you're a better pitcher with the better catcher. So the catcher does have that big of an impact where it affects your confidence, what pitches you're going to throw, because the backup might just go through an array. He's like, slider, oh, you don't want that? Okay, curve. Where like a Molina's like, you're going to throw this and you're going to like it.
Oh yeah, no, it's execute your pitch. If I put down a finger and I give you a location, I'm going to frame it, block it, whatever else needs to be done, how he can assist me. But it's my job to execute the pitch that he puts down. And so I have the utmost confidence that if I do my job, he's going to do his job. So 2-strike approach, and I got to bounce a ball in the dirt, I know he's going to block it. It's not going to be oh my God, I hope this doesn't get by him. That's one of the biggest things. And I think when you look at, Alvarez and you look at, even Nito, those things come into play as far as, the comfort level that pitchers have with them. And so you're going to keep just doing musical chairs with catchers unless you bring in a Mike Piazza where it's like, I don't even care if he catches the ball. Let him hit him in the chest as long as he hits 3 home runs and drives in 7. So we're not at that point anymore when it comes to catchers. And I think they made that mistake with McCann trying to, assume a backup catcher, because if you extrapolate the 7 home runs he hit in 90 at bats, if you give him 600 at bats, he's going to hit 43 home runs. That's not how it works.
All right, we've spent enough time. We've spent
on backup catchers. Show. Really, this is how we start the show. Backup catchers.
I'll tell you, it was a very philosophical, good baseball conversation, though. And I was such a loser growing up that I love Vance Wilson. I loved Elvis. My dad would play Elvis. We listened to the cassettes. We say "Burning Love," and then
how is Elvis being called a loser?
No. Here's the rest of the story. So
please continue.
Jailhouse Rock. You remember the song? I loved Elvis. I would listen. So he would say number 47 said to number 3. So I was such a loser. I didn't curse, drink, smoke. I went bowling, went to the Trumbull Mall. Like, I would say shiitake mushrooms instead of shit. I would say like fudge instead of,
yes,
the F word.
Got it.
Any others? So I would say Joe McEwick said to Vance Wilson. Because Vance Wilson was number 3.
The numbers. Yep, I got it.
But what a loser thing to do. But that's how much I love the Mets. And that's why we're here today on the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic, with Jake Brown and Nelson Figueroa, as the Mets head across the pond, step into the phone booth, and head to London for a 2-game series, which it's always weird to me. It's like you're going across the world, essentially. I mean, it's only, a 6-hour flight. But you're going to a different time zone. You're doing all to have 2 days off to play 2 games. Like, why not have Thursday as a travel day? Play Friday. I get you got to get used to the time code, or play Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I don't know. 2 games seems odd to make this whole thing for.
You're talking to the guy who literally was a human globetrotter, going around and playing games and showing up after traveling on red eyes and pitching games. So no, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that, oh my God, I'm going to be so jet lagged. The way you travel, and they're traveling first class in their private charter. Stop it. It's not that big of a deal. It's really not. When these guys used to travel by train and show up and play after riding on the rails all night long. So it's just, I don't know. Extra comfort. I don't know what to call it, but I think it's more getting things ready, getting things acclimated, letting them practice on the field, just in case any conditions pop up. It's slippery, things of that nature. So I'm not think it's not about the players not able to perform just without 2 days of rest.
Are they traveling first class, or are they traveling first class?
Dude, the whole plane.
It's
the Mets private charter. Of course, it's first class. All the way.
I just wanted Jack Harlow. I had the chains, which, yes, your wish came to tuition. My old chain, it made my neck green. You see, it's a little. I don't know if you could see on the camera. It's like a little rusty. Yeah, you could see there. It's like. So my neck actually was green, and even in the shower, it didn't come off. I think it's gone now. So I did go TJ Maxx, which you were with me. You can confirm. I did tell Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso did compliment my chain. Figgy is the only one who was there. And then I whispered him, "Don't tell anyone. It's from TJ Maxx." I should have said, don't tell anyone. I've been saying every week on the show that the Mets should trade you, but I didn't say that. But that's going to be the interesting thing here. We'll transition to that. The Mets are undefeated when Jeff McNeil's not in the lineup, and he's enemy number one amongst Mets fans now, as Frank the Tank will say, Jeff McFeeble. He really has been, and he's never going to play again versus a lefty. I love everything about Jose Iglesias. I know he's short-term.
Great kid.
Candelita. We'll go to the Spanish Academy in a little bit, but what is Candelita? I looked it up. Means like spark or firecracker or small candle.
Yeah.
He's basically a small candle for this team, and he makes a diving play yesterday, 3 hits the other night. His music's actually good. This is not a Darren Waller situation. Darren Waller's music sucks. Candelita, I don't know one word that's being said unless he says hola or anything that I've learned in the Nelson Figueroa Spanish Academy. It's bangers. Like Candelita, he needs more Spotify streams. I was looking at his streams, and we've had some more streams on our podcast episodes than streams to Candelita songs. So go play some Candelita. He's been a spark. Did you ever come across it? I don't think you played with him, but I did. You did. When did you play with him?
We were the Boston Red Sox in AAA in Pawtucket. We won a championship together. I first got to see this Cuban sensation. He's probably one of, if not the best glove handler that I've ever seen. I watched him on a daily basis of how he prepared his routine. I literally have scoured the internet to see if anybody had the wherewithal to film this guy and how he prepares before a game. It's very similar to how Ron Washington prepares all his guys, and you see how big deal they make of that. He did that on a daily basis at the AAA level, but he took it a step further. There were plays that he would do during batting practice where he would have, one of the pitchers would be at second base to catch balls after a ball got hit to him at short, and he would work on like the unorthodox throws, the off-balance throws. He would throw the ball, bounce it behind his back, and try to one-hop it right to second base so that you can get the force out on a play where he otherwise probably has to eat it and not be able to get it out. He worked on that, and it finally worked in the big league level several times, and there's a highlight reel that you can watch on YouTube that's amazing of him. And I've always been a huge fan of his. And whether he hit or not, he wasn't wasn't one of these guys that was going to hit you to 30 home runs or anything of that nature, but his glove work is exceptional. So any chance you have to shore up the defense a little bit, I always err on the side of defense, especially up the middle. But he was he's a wizard with the glove.
But did you know, is he the spark? Is he he was only in the minors then, so maybe he's just got more confidence now and he became an all-star. Now, I didn't even realize you were the Red Sox minor leagues. I guess that was 2012. 2012. So that was before he became a really good major leaguer.
Yeah.
You noticed the kind of teammate he was, because I think the Mets, Jeff McNeil seems to be the opposite. It seems like a lot of people don't like him. He's a bit standoffish. He's very frustrated every time he gets out, every time he throws the bat. That's not something you want. Where as much as people want to hate on Lindor, who's now on fire and has finally come alive, he doesn't throw his bat after he gets out. He kind of stays mellow. And I think he'll still cheer. He'll have an 0 for 5 day, but he'll cheer on his guys. Jeff McNeil, if he's having an 0 for 5 day, he might be in the clubhouse and pissed off, where Lindor will be on the top step. And I think that's a difference. Do you notice that with a spark plug like Iglesias coming here and when you played with him?
Everybody's a little bit different, right? So I can go back in my days, and Jeff Kent, everybody, even his own teammates, hated Jeff Kent. So maybe it's the Jeff name. I don't know. Maybe that's something to it. But McNeil has always had this.
Hold on. Take me back to that. So Jeff Kent. So a player that someone hate, is it no one in the, because we've talked about this, and I think this is in the closest knit Met clubhouse. I think even an example is that final out with Marte and Bader bumping into each other and them looking at each other, and then Bader whispering to Nimmo after when Marte runs away. That's like a red flag. You want to talk about red flags with people, and that's a Mets red flag that I don't think everyone loves each other with a Jeff Kent. So, in the clubhouse, is he an unapproachable guy? Is he not high-fiving people? Is that like a cancer in some ways to the clubhouse? And, how does it relate to McNeil here?
No, what it is you kind of let him do his own thing because he's in his own world. He's in his own mind. And again, when he makes an out, when you're in the dugout, you're not the guy. Like I was big as a pitcher who was a starter, and I'm sitting in the dugout. Man, I go over and pat the guy on the butt and be like, "Hey, don't worry about it. You're going to get another at bat," kind of thing. Just try to pick a guy up. Tell him something that I saw in his stance. Tell him something that I saw in his approach. Tell him, anything that I could do to help a teammate. With him, the way that he reacts to things, you don't know if he's going to throw a helmet. You don't know if he's going to try and break a bat. You don't know if he's going to try and smash something. You don't know if he's going to just start cursing and swinging punches. You don't know. So you're very standoffish. You kind of let him go through his thing, and you got to wait. And you don't know if he's approachable. You don't know how he's feeling that day. It's like a pit bull off a leash. You don't know, no matter how cute that little puppy is, if he's going to snap. So that's one thing about Jeff McNeil that I've always, we talked to Pete Alonso when we used to have our podcast. We talked to Pete Alonso and we said, how can you calm him down? How can you get him to understand he's at the major league level? There's no higher level. So as a scratch golfer, that's an individual sport, right? The focus is very individual. He has that approach to his game. And that's what drives him nuts, is he's in his own world, he's in his own head, and there's no way to get out of it. Nothing that anybody can say or do other than Jeff McNeil. That's the problem with Jeff McNeil. He's very individualized. He takes it like if he's playing at the U.S. Open. He's a fantastic golfer when he can control what he can control. Baseball is a different element. It's not sitting on a tee. It's not teed up on the fairway. It's not an easy putt that you can read and take your time with. Things are happening very fast. And not that the game speeds up on him, but his reactions to things linger way too long. You have to have a short memory. We talk about that all the time with closers especially, but it's true with all players. From pitch to pitch, as a starting pitcher, I cannot sit there and harp on the fact that the umpire didn't call something a strike, and we'll get to that a little bit later, or there was a check swing that wasn't called. I can't dwell on that. I've got to find a way to get a major league hitter out with a runner in scoring position. So for Jeff McNeil, the biggest thing is this is a mental break like we saw with Vogelback last year, right? Maybe a little bit of a physical break if he has anything going on as well. But at the same time, you know what you're being shown is that this team can win without you. Baseball moves on without you. So no matter what you're getting paid, no matter how good you think you are, no matter how many silver sluggers you have up on the wall, baseball will move on without you. It's next man up. And David Stearns is proving that. He's not afraid to make a move. So if there's a move to be made and it's for the betterment of the team and they feel like he just doesn't fit, it's been a long time that we felt like he's been a square peg in a round hole. And it's going to be very interesting what happens if this team continues to win this way without him.
I mean, the issue is who wants him? Like you're going to have to package him with a prospect. And the Mets, I don't think in a year where they're 8 games under 500 in the business of trading off prospects. So unless he's just like, you're eating most of the money and you're getting a low-level prospect, maybe then I see a team doing it. Maybe giving him a shot, maybe a change of scenery, maybe a smaller market outside of New York where there's less pressure, maybe someone like a Kansas City. Whoever, I haven't looked through to see who needs a second baseman, but that's really all he is. He's a second baseman, or maybe he's a DH. I don't know. That's
a great thing. Well, he plays the outfield as well. So get him back to being get him back. Well, he played just fine for years. Nobody complained about the way he played the outfield. Maybe the first few games, but he played there for 3 years. So I think him being a utility player, him being able to, maybe he's better on grass than he is on dirt. He likes playing golf. I think that would be something that the Kansas City team could look into. You get a former batting champion, and they're in a fantastic spot right now, with the way that they're playing. You get a little bit of, but the thing is there any leadership value to him in the clubhouse? There isn't.
Zero.
There isn't.
Yeah.
There's no one that says, man, I had a great talk with Jeff McNeil today. He really helped me. I've never heard that in the 6-7 years that we've had him on the team. So
yeah, and it's the batting champion. It might have just been a great year. I mean, some guys have. Listen, I was the talk of Philadelphia sports radio one morning because I had Desi Relaford on my podcast, the Jake Brown Show. You remember this. Yep. And he said Philly fans suck. He said they're the worst fans in the sport. Everyone's coming after him, and then they're like, after me, they're like, Jake Brown's a Philly hater, or like, why the hell do you have Desi Relaford on the show? Well, Desi Relaford had an incredible year in 2001 when I was 10 years old. I mean, he hit 300, and he played every position. He pitched one game. He came in to pitch. If you hit 300 for the Mets, you pitch a game, you play every position, you're coming on a show that I host, no matter what. And he did nothing most of the rest of his career. So maybe that's McNeil. And, McNeil had some success prior to that. So it wasn't the Baja Man. It wasn't Gloria Gaynor. It wasn't exactly a 1-year wonder. It was maybe like a 3-year wonder, a 3-hit wonder. Who else had 3 hits? Tweet us. Let us know in the comments what artist was a 3-hit wonder. Maybe some of them are in the UK. Not Oasis or Adele. They all have some bangers. I can't name so many Oasis songs, I'll tell you, but I could sing Hello, It's Me. But he had a couple of years, but that might be it. You're right. Maybe he's just this contract's up, and then he goes to the PGA Tour, and he's working with the PGA Foundation. We were at his event a couple weeks ago. Good for him, raising money for a great cause. Outside of the game, seems like a fine man, but you suck right now. You can't play. You're not going to play Saturday because there's a lefty going again. You're playing Iglesias again. Play the hot hand. Clearly, the team is better without him. And even if you're playing a righty, he's going to have to play once or twice a week, of course, but I don't think it's a lock he should be playing against righties just because he's a left-hand hitter. If he's not hitting, sit his ass.
Oh, and I think that's the bottom line, that this new regime isn't going to, tolerate mediocrity when it comes to that, especially from guys that they're counting on. If you look at, he was a 307 lifetime hitter, which right there up with the best of Mets all time through the first 5 years of his career. When he got the deal, it seemed like a nice cushiony deal for a guy who just came off of winning a batting title.
It felt like a steal at the time for 12
absolutely.
a year. Now you can't get rid of it.
Absolutely. And the problem is that he has regressed. It's not his skill level. It's literally his at-bats. His at-bats used to feel like, 8-pitch, 9-pitch at-bats. He would foul off some pitches and then give you the bat-to-ball contact that they talked about and they raved over. Every single manager that he's been through has raved over him. They haven't seen many people like this. It's an old school feel of a guy that can hit the ball all over the place. The greatest thing that was supposed to happen to Jeff McNeil was he won a batting title before they banned the shift. Now that they banned the shift, well, it's just, sky's the limit. This guy's going to be like Arise from the Padres. He's going to be able to put the ball wherever he wants to. And we don't see that from him. What we see from him is pretty quick at bats, 3 pitches, swinging all over the place, but not having an approach, a plan, and sticking to it.
That's a good point. The shift definitely has had a major impact on him. I really didn't even think about that. And, his best at bats are when he bunts. I mean, how much I love a bunt, but he's actually a good drag bunter, and I wish he did that more. It's a positive thing. Anyway, that's enough Jeff McNeil. We're running out of time here. The Sick Podcast, Mets Magic, Jake Brown, Nelson Figueroa. They didn't have much tolerance either for Jorge Lopez. It's old news now, so be brief on it here, Figgy. But your thought on him throwing the glove, there was the story. I'm not sure it's 100% true. I assume it is. Boomer Esiason said he's friends with a guy who knows that his kid is in need of a transplant or his kid was going through things. It was his kid's birthday, so mentally he might have not been there. Then, in your sake, and we'll go to the Nelson Figueroa Spanish Academy in a minute, but, not having – I heard Allen was there but wasn't right next to him. I heard he was in the room and very close by and could have potentially helped the interpreter, translator, and did not. The whole we're the worst effing team in MLB. He said teammate. Recap it all for me quick.
Quick version. He said what he said no matter what he said. Doesn't matter how it came out. Doesn't matter. You're talking to somebody who, there was no camera footage of when I called the National Softball Girls, but that was the headline the next day. So I know one thing is true always with the media. If you say it and they're there to record it, it's been said. And they gave him a chance to walk it back. And he doubled down and said, I don't care what happens. If I'm here tomorrow, great. If I'm not here tomorrow, great. I don't really care. Understandably, knowing all the other things that we know now about his son being sick and his son's birthday and all those different things, his demeanor was off from the very beginning of the game. He threw the first pitch. If you go back and watch the first pitch of that inning, he hangs a slider. Umpire calls it a ball. It's at the top of the zone, and he yells out an F-bomb right away to the home plate umpire. So something was off with him already. He was already cantankerous. He was already not – maybe he didn't want to be in the game. Maybe he was asked before the game. This is what happens before every game. They come up to you and they say, hey, can you give me an inning today? And maybe he didn't feel like he could give him an inning. Maybe he felt like, I need a day off. And because Ottavino blows it, they're like, well, we got to go to Lopez now. Because when that bullpen started, remember, right, it was Diaz, Raley, Smith, Lopez, Ottavino, and Diekman. The only three that were left were Ottavino, Diekman, and Lopez.
And Ottavino's body is there, but I don't know if his arm is actually.
Exactly. He's going back to back. He's 38 years old. He's going back to back games, 6 times now at least. So you realize these guys are being pushed because they're being counted on because they're the veterans. And so Lopez has missed 2 years of being in the big leagues. Of course, he's going to try and take advantage of every opportunity. But how many opportunities can you do? We talked about this with the Mets last year, where they had a guy who I don't even remember his name, but he had 32 games before June, and he had 29 games in his career. So he was being worn out.
You always forget
Jeff Brigham. He got worn out that way. So it could have been one of those situations where, look, he told him, listen, I really need a day, just in case, an emergency situation, last man, sure, I'll pitch. And he wasn't the last man. They made him get up and they made him pitch, and he had to pitch, and it wasn't going well. And then he argues with the umpire. He argues with the third base umpire. He gets tossed. His reaction was awful. You can't do that. However, in which Turk Wendell, who I love and played with, he did the same thing in Philadelphia. He was blowing games left and right as a closer, and he threw his glove into the stands as well. And it's a reaction that you have. It's like you want to leave it all out there on the field. You don't want anything to do with this, with the way that you're pitching, and that's the way that he wanted to show it. I'm done with this. But he had time to formulate his thoughts. He had time to formulate. He knew what he was going to be asked, and on top of that, Allen was available, the interpreter. He refused the interpreter because he didn't want to use it as a crutch that he didn't understand the English language. He's done English interviews since he's been in the big leagues. So everybody that's saying, oh, he didn't know what he was saying, that's not true. Okay. When he was asked again a second time and he doubled down and he says, well, it looks like it is that we're the worst team in major leagues. And he was the worst teammate on the team, the worst team in the major leagues. So he wanted to say those things. They didn't come out the way that he wanted to say it, but you always have time to take it back. And they tried. Steve Gelbs tried to get him to clarify, and he doubled down on it. My other thing was I talked to several reporters who I know that speak Spanish, and I said, why didn't you throw him a lifeline? You heard what he said. Why didn't you say to him in Spanish, do you realize what you're saying? And that would have maybe helped the situation. Bigger picture, he shouldn't have been available to the media. If he had all that going on, he shouldn't have been available to the media for any reason. For any reason. He blew a game. He had a bad reaction. Give him a day to collect his thoughts and get right. Or if you're going to suspend him for throwing the glove over the thing, let him come back and talk about it after it's all said and done. But you don't let that guy be available to the media when it's raw like that.
And especially if there's other things going on mentally with the family, like if there's serious stuff going on, I agree. Yeah. You don't
allow that man to be interviewed. You know who wouldn't have done that? The Yankees. The Yankees would have not had him available to speak to the media. I promise you that.
Yeah.
Okay. We've seen it before when guys have a bad game. They're working out. They're getting treatment. They're doing this. They're doing that. The 30-minute window is closed. Take care. Thank you very much. Maybe you'll hear from him tomorrow about it. Maybe he just wants to turn the page. Then the next day he comes to the ballpark and he says, you know what? I was wrong for what I did. Let's move forward. And everything would have been fine. You don't allow someone who obviously isn't in his right mind at the moment, has had what he's had going on and off the field, and you allow him to speak to the media when you know what New York media does. They push buttons.
Mm-hmm.
They always have. And I'm part of the media now, and I get it. You want to ask the tough questions. You want to be the person who gets the soundbite. You want to be the person who then turns in the clicks. Do you know what happens after that? I guarantee you everyone involved in that situation doesn't really feel good about it. They know that something could have been done more to help a person who was struggling both mentally and physically with whatever was going on.
Yeah, it was a sad situation because the two sides of it, and we'll move on. We got a couple minutes left here on Mets Magic, is that one, the Mets have been better since that team meeting / cutting him. If there's any correlation, they are 5-2 since then. Really should be 6-1 if that implosion Sunday doesn't happen. I actually, despite how bad Ottavino's been, I would have liked to see him for a second inning. I know the stats don't show it. He only threw 9 pitches in the 8th on Sunday. Then they went to Diekman, who blew it. But either way, they probably end up losing. That's how this season has gone. And why it's hard for me to believe they'll turn it around. And the other side of it is that they lose a guy who's actually, like you said, been fairly solid for this team this year. And now we're relying on the likes of Denzel Nunez and Danny Young and these young pitchers. Tuesday's massive for the Mets. For not only Francisco Alvarez come back, but they expect Edwin Diaz back, and they need lockdown Edwin Diaz to be back. Like, they need this 2-week hiatus, and hopefully his shoulder's fine. He's got to get his confidence back. He needs to be a closer. Like, enough of, like, he needs mop-up duty. They need him. There's a lockdown guy, because that's been the problem for the Mets. Sometimes they're okay getting 21 outs, even 24, but 6 losses in a month leading after 8 innings and then blowing in the ninth. You can't make the playoffs. You can't be 500 doing something like that. So they need lockdown Diaz back. The Mets go to London this weekend. Let's flash this tweet here, guys, from our guy Jolly Olive, because the Mets advertised a trip to London. It looks like I see Adam Ottavino, who is cooked. It's Reed Garrett, which is just random. But in the middle of why you don't recognize him, it's Jake Reed. The guy pitched 9 games for the Mets 2 years ago with an ERA over 8, and he's advertised in the London series. I think they ended up taking this sign down, but how do you advertise this battle between the Mets, the Phillies, even if you're just putting the Mets? I mean, there should, if you're advertising Mets, you should have a Philly on there, but I'm glad it's all Mets. But 2 bum relievers and one who was not on the team anymore and was here for a cup of coffee. Just a bizarre advertisement there. And as the Mets go to London, Figgy, we got 2 minutes left. Let's quickly do a Nelson Figueroa Spanish Academy. What can you give me? Words over the pond, across the pond, tea and crumpets. What can you give me that's London theme to learn this week?
London theme to learn. Big Ben, Grande Benjamin.
Who's Big Ben?
Really?
Not Roethlisberger.
The clock tower in London.
I'm not very cultured, but Sister Act 2 did have a reunion yesterday, and I literally.
that you know.
I'm not gonna lie, I cried. Like at the end of it, Whoopi was crying. I cried. It was just emotional. Happy 30-year anniversary, Sister Act 2. Anyways, Big Ben. Say it again.
Grande Benjamin.
Grande Benjamin. That's my brother too. That's my brother is Big Benjamin.
There you go.
Do you know how do you say tea and crumpet or a cup of tea?
Tea is real easy. It's tea.
Tea? Oh, see, that's what I would guess. I would say a cup of tea, and it's actually true. What's cup?
Very easy.
You know what cup is?
Tazo. T-A-Z-O.
A tazo de tea?
Mm-hmm.
That's lame. No R rolling. I kind of like it. Though.
No, this is the easy one for you. Think about it. We can't make people in England roll their R's either.
A tazo de tea.
I will give you this. I will give you this one. Did you see the advertisement for the Mets with the London series, and they're all trying to do the London accent?
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, you've got to go looking for it on the internet. You want to talk about going viral? They may have taken it down because I watched it the first time and I was like, "Oh my God, how are they putting this out there?" They were all making fun of the London accent, but think about if they were playing in Japan, would they all start doing Japanese accents, and how would that go over? Mm-hmm. So I get it's still English, and I get it's an accent, but it would be like if you were playing in Florida or playing down south, and you started doing some, very southern drawl when that's not your. It was a bad look for me, and I think they took it down. But it was hilarious because all these guys are trying to do their best English, and the best part about it was Lindor said, "I struggle with English as it is." he goes, "My accent is already horrible. I can't do a different one."
I tried it in the open here. I tried to do it, and I ended up sounding like a Brooklyn Jewish mother, like my mother when I tried. It's like a mix of Jewish and English. All a cup of tea, crumpets. Well, we'll say goodbye to Nelson Figueroa. See, that's terrible. Like I can only do Jewish, Brooklyn Jewish.
Very, very, very quick. So 2 things that to continue to watch for. Lindor, since moving to the leadoff spot, has been much, much better for this team. The Mets since the team meeting, of course. I mean, guys.
Nimmo's got to pick it up too. Nimmo has been inexcusably bad, and I think that's getting overlooked. Because he's happy. He's all happy.
It is. And again, it goes with your demeanor, right? Everybody's like, oh, well, he's still smiling. And so he gets a pass for that kind of thing. But the Mets, since the team meeting, they're leading all of Major League Baseball in WAR, which means they're playing good baseball again. So that's a good thing to see. Let's see if they can continue it. They're playing against the first place Phillies, who have been on fire and not looking like they're slowing down anytime soon. They're the Yankees of the National League. So it'll be good to see where they're at there. If they can split, that'd be fantastic. Get back home, get Alvarez, get Diaz, get right, and see if they can go on a little bit of a run.
Well, it starts in London before they return home, and then hopefully the Mets at the end of the month could be somewhat close to 500 at Figgy NYNX, Pix 11, 7 to 7:30 p.m. New York Sports Nation Nightly. It's good to have you on as a 50-year-old. I talking to you in a new decade for the first time. Did you get your AARP card in the mail? I think that starts at 50 now, right?
So the funny thing is it went to my mom's house and it went like to Nelson N. Figueroa. So I told my mom that's not me, and I don't know why.
Nelson Mandela
like
Figueroa is your middle name?
And as in, I don't have a middle name. So I was like, that's not me. I said, that's not me. So somebody's, it's identity fraud. Some other guy is getting an AARP card. I'm not old enough for an AARP card. Come on.
Well, enjoy the bingo tables, Nelson Mandela Figueroa, and
will do.
Create baseball peace. And let's hope the Mets turn it around, because without Jeff McNeil out there, they're a much more fun team to root for. And Wednesday was great, but it was the Nationals. Now they get a real test. And then take care of business against the bad team. You got to go out and beat the Marlins next week when you come home. You get Alvarez, you get Diaz, and hopefully Diaz is back to normal. Figgy, good to check in with you. We won't be taking the trip across the pond. Nope. I rarely take a trip across the Hudson River to New Jersey very often.
Or Staten Island.
Or Staten Island. I'm going to be honest. Gary Cohen, I forgot that day it was your birthday. And Gary Cohen said it on the broadcast, happy birthday, Nelson Figueroa. And I was like, oh my God, I completely forgot. And I texted you right after Gary Cohen informed me. So I'm not a great friend, clearly. I completely forgot. But my memory is shot, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you why, but
who knows?
Gary Cohen has always texted me a happy birthday early in the morning. He gets it out the way. So thank you very much to Gary Cohen. It was funny because when he said it, Keith goes, I got a out of Keith.
Yeah, no other reaction, but
no other reaction whatsoever. But yeah, it's always fun to celebrate your birthday with the fans and family and friends, and had a very fun birthday party. So let's see what 50 plus brings for the rest of this big ride around the globe.
We'll talk to you after the 4th of July.
You got it, brother. Take care.
That's Nelson Figueroa, Pix 11 every night, 7 to 7:30. Catch in with Mark Malusis. Does a great job there, and that's a great job of a show we just did, the Sick Podcast. Mets Magic, Sick Pod Mets on Twitter. Go get us. Sick Podcast Mets Magic on YouTube. Smash that thumbs up. Comment below. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. Again, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. Give us a 5-star rating. Write a nice review. I'm at Jake Brown Radio. We'll be back next week. Enjoy London. Enjoy Mets Marlins. We'll talk after Mets Marlins at Citi Field next week. Keep the good vibes rolling, baby. Let's go, Mets. Catch you next week.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Mets Magic on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.